What's up, everyone? My name is Matthew Dale. I'm here to help you play better, sound great, and understand more. And today in this lesson, we're going to talk about power chords. Now, some of you might be out there saying, that seems kind of like a basic lesson. I mean, there's really only one shape, and you move that one shape around, right? But I assure you, towards the end of this lesson, you are going to learn something that you didn't know before about power chords. Real quick, before we continue, I am going to be talking a little bit about some music theory here in this video, so if you want to brush up on all things music theory, then you should definitely head over to matthewdale.com/theory and download my Essential Music Theory cheat sheet. This free guide is just my gift to you for hanging out with me in this video. These chords are created by playing the root note of a scale or root note of a chord and the fifth above it, or the fifth note of the scale. So if I have this A plus its fifth note, A, B, C sharp, D, E, A and E together, this perfect fifth interval, creates a power chord. This chord would also be written as A5 on a chord chart. And so that we can avoid the strange thing that seems to be happening every time I say power chord, I'm going to refer to them as 5 chords from now on. That's definitely a lot more descriptive than power chords. Now, this is usually one of the very first movable chord shapes that we learn on the guitar. As long as we understand where our root note is, we can play this 5 chord and move that chord around. A5, B5, G5, D5, E5, C5, different way of playing a B5, F5, F5, and then don't forget the sharps and flats, C sharp 5, E flat 5, and so on and so forth. I think you get the idea. No matter where I put this basic chord shape down, the chord that I'm playing is a 5 chord. And typically we play these chords with our root note being on either the low E string or the A string. Now, after we learn this basic shape where it's just the root note and the fifth note, a lot of times we'll also add the other root note to that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back to our root note. So now we have this full octave, the root, the fifth, and the root again. And this gives us a little bit of a fuller sound. If I play that with a little bit of drive, and now if I play just 1 and 5, there's not one right or wrong way. It just depends on what sound you think fits the best for the song you're playing. This is where a lot of us stop with 5 chords. We just learn these basic shapes and these basic root position shapes from the E string and the A string. But what if we actually keep going across the fretboard with this 1 and 5 shape? So there's one way of playing it, one way of playing it. We can also play it on the D string, so D string to the G is the same shape. Now, if I go from the G to the B, I have to make an alteration. So I'm no longer 2 frets apart, I'm 3 frets apart. This is going to be a C5, so 5th fret on the G string for a C, and then G, the 8th fret on the B string. And then I can go back to the same shape from the B string to the E string. Now, what if I add our octave to that? 5, 7, 7, 5, 7, 7. Now, this one looks kind of weird. It's the root position from the D string. And this one is 5, 7, 8 for this G power chord. I did it again. And then if I go and I play this C5 again, now I'm playing C, G on the 8th fret, and then our high C on the 8th fret as well. I know I'm going through some of these chord shapes pretty fast in this video, but if you want a really helpful chord chart with all of the shapes that I'm playing in this video, I will have one available over at my Patreon. I'll link to it in the description box below. We can still do more clever things with power chords. I just give up at this point. What if we start inverting these? So instead of playing 1 in 5, we play 5 to 1. Or instead of 1, 5, 1, we play 5, 1, 5. Here's what these sound like. So I'm gonna start on A again, but this time with the inversion, it's gonna be the inversion of a D5. So A, D, A. These sound pretty interesting, especially on the low strings. This is one way that you could actually get the sensation or the sound of a extended range guitar like a 7-string without actually playing a 7-string. Let's continue. So here is D, starting with the 5th. Now let's go up. This is going to be a G5, again starting with the 5th. 5, 1, 5. Here's a C5 starting with the 5th. And then this is going to be an F5 starting with the 5th. So those are the 5-chord inversions. Now here's where the magic happens. When you start actually combining these concepts, you can come up with some really clever rhythm guitar parts. So now I've got a really simple backing track that I'm going to play over so we can hear just how much variety is in these new chord voicings. The chords on the backing track are just going to be D, A, B minor, and G. This is a 1, 5, 6, 4 in the key of D. This is a super common and super basic chord progression. So if we can make this sound really interesting, we know we've got a lot of options for some great part writing with these chord voicings. I'm going to start with just the basics played in a couple different ways. Here we go. Super basic, I'll do that again. I'm gonna go up now. Same octave, different places. So that was all root position power chords. Now I'm going to start adding some inversions. Here we go. Let me go back to the start of this, and I'm going to play some inversions during this as well. Up the octave. Keep moving up. And I did something else in the tail end of that on the B minor that I'll talk about a little bit later. But first, there is a chord shape that is pretty commonly linked to our power chords. Not this time. That is worth having the conversation about, and it's actually 2/3 of a triad inversion, and I'll explain what I mean. So if we have this D5, a really common chord move is to drop that first finger down a fret so we get instead of. Now, what is that second chord? This kind of, tripped me up when I was first learning and playing a ton of punk rock and stuff. I was always curious about what this chord actually was. And as I mentioned a second ago, it's 2/3 of a triad inversion. But what triad inversion? So this is actually, if this is spelled D to A, this is spelled C sharp to A. So this takes place of an A5, but it's actually A with C sharp in the bass, but no E, no fifth, which is actually kind of interesting when we think of power chords. Now that's a major chord, right? So that's playing the major third and the root note. I could also do the same thing with a minor chord. So in the case of our B minor chord, I could play D and B. Definitely not as commonly used, but it is worth having the conversation over. Now, this gives us a couple of really cool options to link some ideas together. So I could play D over F sharp, A, B5 over F sharp, G, D with A in the bass, A, B, G with B in the bass, D, and then A with C sharp in the bass, B minor with D in the bass, G, and then I could turn the octave around, D with F sharp in the bass, A, B with F sharp in the bass, G. Let's actually hear what this sounds like, because this actually gives us some really cool rhythm guitar playing stuff happening. I'm going to go down to F sharp for our D over F sharp, A, B minor with F sharp in the bass, G, D with A in the bass, A, B minor, G with B in the bass, D, A with E in the bass, B with F sharp in the bass, G, D with F sharp in the bass, A, B with F sharp in the bass, G. Now, I find this especially good to do this sort of thing with if you already have a guitar player that's playing some basic power chords. So I'm going to put that part back into our track here, and then I'm also probably going to play a little bit in some higher octaves, and this is where things can really sound big and bold and great sounding. So let's do this again. I'll try to talk through what I'm doing as well. D over F sharp, A, B5 over F sharp, G, new octave, D, second inversion, A, move the B up, inversion of G, D, A, B, G, here's a fancy one, D, some type of A, some type of B5, kind of, G. Listen to that again, I'll not talk. And that's definitely one of my favorite tricks to do if I'm playing these really high power chords. Power chords. Okay, at least one more of those. So what's going on here? I'm playing this high D5, so D, A, D. Now I'm playing a very strange chord voicing here. I'm playing an A sus, but with the third in there as well. So it's D, A, C sharp. It's almost like a D major 7, but I'm just dropping that high D root back a fret, back from D to C sharp. Now, when I move my pinky in this case, I'm moving the C sharp note back to D, I'm doing this over the B minor chord. So what does this actually create? If I put a B on the bottom of this chord, I'm actually spelling out the upper structure of a B minor 7. So D, A, in D, those are what we call the guide tones, the 3rd and 7th of the chord. The 3rd and 7th on a B minor 7 would be the D and then an A. So the bass is taking care of the low B, and then I, as the guitar player, am playing D, A, and D. So it's making this really big, wide B minor 7 sound. And then the next chord following is this G, which is the second inversion, I guess, or the inversion of the G power chord. So D, G, D. And the other thing that I really like about this is it's very concise. Sometimes these 5 chords played all over the place can give you this really big sensation of planing, so you're always moving in a particular direction, sometimes a greater distance. That's always kind of moving around in these blocks. But when I do something like this, it's really nicely voice-led, so only a couple of notes are moving at one time. And again, I love splitting guitar parts up this way when you already have someone taking care of like this low mid-range, and then another guitar is taking care of. That can be really great dual guitar part writing. I hope that you found this lesson really interesting and that you will never underestimate the humble power chord. My name is Matthew Dale. I'm here to help you play better, sound great, and understand more. Don't forget to check out the Essential Music Theory cheat sheet, and if you want all of the chord shapes that I was playing in this video, I will upload a helpful document over on my Patreon. I'll see you all in the next video.
Power chords.